The name's Bond. James Bond.
Finally, we can talk about James Bond.
How long's it been?
Yeah, we had this episode planned for quite a long time. We definitely had it in last year.
Yeah, and then it moved, and then it moved again.
Yeah. A fair play to them getting it out when they did. I think it's done really well by the sounds of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. I'm glad. But this is going to be a really strange episode because on the one hand, there's absolutely no way we can cover 25 films in one episode. That would be its own podcast. We're not doing that. And then the other thing, that there's nothing that we can say that hasn't really already been said.
Exactly. So we're just picking out our thoughts on James Bond, the entire franchise, and we're going to just kind of talk about a bit of everything, really.
Yeah, that's the only way to approach it, really, I think. I have seen No Time to Die, so I'll give like a spoiler-free rundown towards the end. But the thing I'm really looking forward to is we're going to do our top 5 Bond theme songs, so I think that'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the first place we could start is just talking about why and how is James Bond so iconic. And it's hard to put your finger on, really, other than the fact it's been around for so long.
I think it came about at the perfect time for it, really, in the 60s. It was that suave playboy type. But then you also had this side of it that was action, adventure, and that was very much coming into play as a lot more as well. You'd always had your war films and things like that, but this was kind of taking it to the next level.
What appealed commercially, I think, at that time, the earlier films had in them. And I think the other thing as well is that people forget that it is literary based as well. Obviously, it's got origins in British literature.
He didn't really live to see much of it, though, did he, in terms of it coming about? He died in 1964.
Wow, yeah. So literally maybe 2 come out.
Yeah, so you might have seen the first film.
That's bizarre, isn't it?
But this whole franchise pretty much built up after he passed away.
And it's become such an institution in itself, hasn't it? Because, I mean, the Broccoli family and Harry Saltzman, I think, that founded almost its own production company, this Eon Productions. They bought the rights to all of Fleming's work.
Yeah. The early films, they remind me, and their kind of studio exactly, and their philosophy. The first few remind me of the Carry On studios.
Yeah.
How it's like, right, we're going to go this cheap. How can we do this? Like, right, we're going to do this so it looks like we're here, but we're actually in England. It reminds me of that. There was like this cheapness to how can we pull this off?
Well, it's like you've got Leavesden Studios, which is Harry Potter, and you've got Pinewood, which is Bond, like the famous Bond stage.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how they've taken up root here, and they've just made so much.
And then obviously, as they've gone along, it's got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Apparently, it's the 6th highest grossing film series of all time.
Mm-hmm. I can believe that.
Yeah, 14 billion adjusted for inflation. So, I mean, that speaks for itself. And the popularity of it all. I mean, if there's a Bond film out, you go, don't you? Just, there's no question, you don't miss it.
It's become a huge event.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And for it to have been going for 50 plus years is just incredible. Maybe 60 nearly.
It's an amazing thing, really, because what other set of films could just change the actors like they do and it just be accepted like that? It's just one of those things. It just keeps kind of adapting itself and changing, and it's not like anything else, really. It's
kind of landed its own formula that just really works. And I mean, the word recycle sounds a bit negative, but they are able to just sort of redo the same kind of structure over and over again, and they've got the same conventions and the same motifs every time. So I think that's part of why it's popular, because you know what you're going to get every time. Yeah. Once you've hit on something that works, why change it, I suppose? That might be a good segue into talking about what is a Bond film, I suppose. Like, what do they do? And I think genre is one thing. They've always been an interesting blend of action and comedy. Sort of ridiculous in places, but they've never been a parody of spy films, and I think that's a really clever balance that they've done. Yeah, they like to have the humour very much in there. It's definitely still in there today. It's less cheesy now, but it's part of the fun of it. I think more than anything, you go to a Bond film because it's fun. Absolutely. It's got everything in it. I like how over time the types of story, or I should say like the missions or the villain schemes in each one have kind of changed, because they were very Cold War based. Yeah, they've changed with the decades, they've changed with the times. We should also say we're coming to it from very different places. You're a huge Bond fan. You've watched them for years and years. You've seen them all.
I haven't. I had memories of Jaws.
Yeah, he's fabulous.
So my dad must have had the Roger Moore ones on as a kid, but not really anything other than that. I'd never seen the Pierce Brosnan ones. So, like, even though I grew up in that era, I didn't see them, and I hadn't really watched any. So when I was at university, I went and watched all the Sean Connery ones, and I got up to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I watched, and then I kind of just fell off the wagon and didn't carry on from there.
I used to do the same. I used to be like, right, I'm going to watch all the Bond films. I was on like 9 or something, and then I'd start, and then I'd get like 6 in, and then 4 years later I'd be like, oh, I'm going to watch the Bond films.
Yeah, so I was coming to it from a very different kind of place than you were. And I'm not done. I am going to carry on. I am going to carry on with them.
Oh, yeah, get them all done. They're all good.
I'd like to see more of them. I will carry on with it.
Yeah. Well, because I have seen them all now, being able to almost categorise them by the type of story, if that makes sense. So you definitely got the Cold War style one. So this is like your spy, intelligence, espionage kind of things. You've got things like From Russia with Love and The Living Daylights and Skyfall. So they're all about some kind of exposure of another country's intelligence. You've got ones that are all about submarines, or some kind of missile control of submarines, and you've got your space shuttle or your space program ones, and obviously this was space race time as well. So that's kind of like your Cold War focus ones. And then you've got ones that are about like science and technology. Obviously a lot more of those recently, like Tomorrow Never Dies is about media. Satellites like GoldenEye and Die Another Day. Natural resources, things like The World Is Not Enough was about oil, and Quantum of Solace is about water and things like that. You've got ones that are about biological warfare, and then you've just got ones that are like general crime. You've got this smuggling like Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever, and terrorism like Casino Royale and Thunderball. So the plots are...
You got a good mix.
Yeah, it's definitely not just spies. I like some of the themes that have come in and how they've reacted to changing things, like global warming gets mentioned quite a lot now in the new ones and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it's very clever.
Yeah, they've kept themselves up to date.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Bond films is it's the technology and the storylines, things like they are very dating. However, it doesn't seem to matter with Bond.
No.
Like that would with certain films. You'd go, oh God, this is so dated. It just doesn't with Bond. You just enjoy it all the same.
It's testament to how well they did make them, even when they were limited, I think. And yeah, each one's like a little time capsule. Like you almost can't fault it because it was a product of its time, and there's a nostalgia. I mean, obviously I wasn't alive in the 60s, but you almost feel nostalgic watching them. But there's no story without a villain in a Bond film. Now,
very true.
I don't know about you, but I just think they're the best things ever.
Yeah, there's two things that you always look out for and everybody's always talking about. And it's the Bond girls and the Bond villains.
Yeah.
It's become a thing now. Who's going to be the villain? Who's going to be the Bond girl?
That's a very good point. It almost hinges on that as well. And there have been films that haven't worked as well because the villain's not been strong. I think the ones I've ranked the lowest actually are also the ones that I would rank lowest on villain.
I don't just think of like the main villain either. I like to be honest, most of the time I prefer the Henchmen.
Yeah, I love the Henchmen.
Odd Job, love Odd Job, fantastic. Rosa Klebb.
My favourites.
From Russia with Love. Oh, she's great. I love the women, to be honest. On Her Majesty's Secret Service has got a woman in it as well, and she's
of course.
Yeah, she's good. Jaws, of course, is my favourite. So I actually think I prefer the Henchmen to the big bad. Yeah, actually.
My favourite thing about all the villains in general, and it's just that they have these weird sort of adaptations to them. Like the hat. Odd Job's hat. It's just so specific, and like Jaws. Very specific, metal teeth. Xenia on the top, strong thighs. I don't know if you've seen GoldenEye yet, but
I have. That was really weird.
I love her.
I thought she was a great character. I really liked her. But yeah, the strong thighs thing, bit weird.
But then you got people like Stromberg in The Spy Who Loved Me's got webbed hands. Not for any particular reason other than he likes the ocean, but he's got webbed hands. Scaramanga's got 3 nipples. It doesn't matter, but it's just quite funny.
I feel it is. However, I have seen quite a few people comment on the whole that
villains have to have a physical defect.
Yeah, and that's becoming, I think, more of an issue. I think people are having problems with that.
I think it's the ones where it's like if they've got like a scar, and then that's considered to be sort of villainous trait, then that's not good. But if it's something like someone's got a bullet in their brain, I don't really feel that.
That's fine. I'm okay with that one.
Or 3 nipples. I mean, 3 nipples is quite comical. I'm sure no one. I'd quite like to have 3 nipples. So yeah, I did see a video and it showed people who had physical differences, and it did say, we're not all villains. So it's a really interesting.
Yeah, that it's come about
look
more.
At it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose on a similar vein than the Bond girls, in terms of being PC and being...
Yeah, I have an issue with the Bond girls. As a girl.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't like the whole... just the way it's done, really. It is very old-fashioned. Mm-hmm. I think it's better than it was.
Yeah, I think it's definitely changed.
But even like the 90s, the Pierce Brosnan thing, that it should have been different already. That I don't think works in the time it was.
Well, I think it's quite interesting because as I was watching them, I was thinking, oh God, it's going to be really awkward. In most cases, when Bond seduces somebody, it usually transpires that they've let him because they're using him and they're actually a villain. So sometimes I'm like, okay, so he's not... And the amount of times he actually forces himself on people is actually not that many times.
Yeah, it's not the forces himself on people, because I haven't noticed as much of that in the ones I've been watching, but it's like these women just like, oh, James. Like, it's what the women aren't like that. They don't do that.
Most of them are doing it on, like I said, they're doing it on purpose. Most of them backstab him straight afterwards.
Not all of them. You've got like Strawberry Fields and that type.
But he doesn't get with her.
Well, he does.
Does he?
Yes.
Oh, never mind.
Yes, he does.
But in most cases, they betray him. So I think it's more of a balance than people think. But yes, I don't agree that it should have been that way.
The Bond girls I prefer are those like Pussy Galore, apart from the name, because I hate it. Really hate that. But I think she plays against him, and she's not just this one who's just going to fall down, and she is very much a partner in a way, even though for most of the film she's on the other side. But she's a partner to him rather than a girl he's going to get with at the end, which I like, because there's just gives them more character, and they're not just swooning for him. And also I like Teresa that he marries. Again, she's not just one that just falls straight away. I like when there's a little bit more story to it.
I mean, he does it quite a few times. Like, it's a good time to mention some of the names as I read these out. Holly Goodhead in Moonraker, that she's a massive part of the film.
Yeah, it's really bad. In space. The names are really bad.
Plenty O'Toole, Dr. Molly Warmflash, Penelope Smallbone. I do think it's funny.
It's so bad.
It's just that kind of
supposed to be funny, but
humor,
it's,
isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of harmless.
Well, this is the thing. Today, you've got to be so careful with it today, because people are offended by everything. So I can see it being more of an issue now.
Yeah, and I don't think they do it anymore now.
No, well, no,
like
they
you say,
don't.
Strawberry Fields is now not, that's just a...
Yeah, and I think they have changed, I think, the way... For the most part, the Bond girls take part in the films. I mean, Vesper Lind is a great character.
Yeah.
Really fantastic. And I think it's good. Obviously, Barbara Broccoli is a huge part of the making of the movies. It's important, I think, to have a female involved because of, obviously, the tropes that James Bond films follow and the way he is as a character and things like that. I think it's important to have a woman involved. I do think, though, that she could have done more and done it quicker.
Well, I think the change happened... I can't remember which one was the first sort of Barbara Broccoli-led one. I want to say it was probably around Pierce Brosnan starting, but definitely with Judi Dench's M, that's where it started changing. And she calls him out, I think, in that first one. She says, you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. And I think it was sensible in terms of managing audiences' expectations, that it was like a gradual shift. And we saw one of the Bond portrayals do the shift. And then we've got Daniel Craig now, which is obviously a very different type. But yeah, the addition of Judi Dench as M was spot on.
Oh god, yeah. She's one of my favourite parts.
Oh yeah.
She's just not in it enough.
I love her so much. Speaking of M then, so we've got M and we've also got Q.
Yeah, I like Q.
So this is where gadgets and vehicles come in. Now, I'm not clued up on my cars. I don't really like cars very much. But Aston Martin seemed to have done well out of this.
Everybody always wants the car once the films come out.
Not me personally.
No, not me. I have to admit, no, it's not cars aren't really my thing.
But I like the gadgets, although I've noticed that they're all very sort of single-use gadgets and very specific. But I like the anticipation of, I wonder how that's going to factor into this plot.
Yeah.
At what moment is this going to be the exact moment to use this gadget?
Yeah.
I quite like that. I suppose in a similar vein as well then is the stunts and the action sequences, which are just famous.
It's become bigger and bigger and bigger. I think obviously just watching GoldenEye, you have that huge leap to start off the film.
Off the dam.
It's huge, but that's what audiences are expecting now. They've kind of built it and built it and built it.
Yeah, they've got to top it every time, haven't they?
Yeah, and especially when you're introducing a Bond as well. So, I mean, Daniel Craig's entrance was immense. That parkour scene at the beginning of Casino Royale is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And you're in it then. That's it. You are so invested.
Yeah.
So it's become a huge thing. And also the opening scene now is a thing. You're expecting things from that first scene because obviously with a franchise like this, there are patterns and tropes and things that you're expecting from it that they've built and built over time.
Especially the beginnings, the beginnings.
Yeah.
I mean, even the MGM lion roaring. I mean, that's synonymous with a Bond film for me. It goes, roar, roar, and then you go, they go hand in hand. It's so strange, but that's what's happened. And like you say, the pre-credits and then the title sequence.
Yes.
That's the start of a Bond film.
Yeah, exactly. So you know to a point what to expect, but you don't.
Yeah, it just has certain signatures. I guess the other thing that comes with it is the sort of the quotes, like the famous lines that have come with Bond.
It's become a thing now, isn't it? Every time you kind of pop someone off, you're expecting a line.
Yeah, some kind of one-liner. There's quite a few good ones in No Time to Die. They've toned down the cheesiness on things like that, but when he does say one, it's like,
it lands. Yeah,
it's quite good. And then the famous ones, the Bond, James Bond, and Shaken Not Stirred.
Yeah.
You couldn't have a film without them saying that now. I think there'd be outrage.
There are certain things you just expect from a Bond film, and I think that's why it's very hard to change as well and to adapt, because there are expectations.
It's a formula that's stuck, isn't it?
There are things that you're going to have, things that people expect to be there. So you are limited to a point, I suppose, by people's expectations.
Yeah, people don't like change. So the fact that it also changes actor is a sort of a hurdle, I think. It's an obstacle.
It is. I mean, there was uproar when Daniel Craig was cast.
Yeah.
A blonde James Bond. I have to admit, I wasn't happy about that myself when I heard about it.
I thought it was a brilliant idea. It didn't matter, though. It didn't matter. I think with Daniel Craig, it's probably the best case that's happened.
He proved that you could, he could do it.
Yeah, and don't judge before you've seen it.
Yeah.
And he obviously went through hell, like actually having to go to work every day filming and reading all the things that was being said about him, that, he had no charisma, he had no charm, he was against type, he was James Bland, blonde Bond, and all these things. And he said, fuck it, I know the script is good, I know it's going to be a good film, and he stuck with it. And best sort of mic drop moment when it became the most popular ever. Yeah,
he's done a very good job as the character, I think. And it's amazing that it's been so long. It's like 15, 16 years, isn't it?
I think he's probably been in it the longest. I'm just looking at the years now. Yeah, I think he's been doing it in terms of years the longest. He's not done the most films. I think he's one short of doing the most. With the other actors, I mean, Sean Connery, it's hard to say what they brought to the role because they're just there, aren't they?
He's most people's favourite, Sean Connery. I think people like the original, they always do. That, you get your diehards.
I think it's because he kind of created that role. He had nothing else to compare against apart from the books at that point. Yeah. A lot of those charismatic elements and
exactly
the suaveness that you mentioned earlier.
As much as I think he's not my favourite, I do really like what he did with the character.
Yeah.
To be honest, I find it very hard to pick a favourite now, actually.
It is hard. Well, they all had their own good points and bad points, I think.
Yeah.
I think with Sean Connery, by the end, I think he didn't really want to do it. I think because he left for one film, they managed to buy him back for another one.
Yeah, and I think for a long time he was a bit bitter about the character and about taking the role because it really typecast him.
Yeah, he still came back and did that other one though. You know, the non-Eon one, the Never Say Never Again, which was
probably because they offered him an obscene amount of money, and he was like, "Yeah, go on then."
Yeah. I think George Lazenby's an interesting one as well. Being the second person to do it was probably really hard.
Yeah, and only doing one as well.
Yeah,
which is it's the outlier because nobody else has only done one.
I think it's easy to look at his and laugh and say, he only did one, so he can't have been that good. But I think he got a really bad rep. I
really like him as Bond, actually.
Yeah, I think he was really underrated.
I really liked him.
He didn't do anything wrong.
To be honest, I've liked all of them. Actually, each one I've watched from every actor, they've fit the part.
Yeah.
You know, they've been cast very well. I thought Timothy Dalton was very good.
Oh, yeah. His Bond's very different. What they did well was they adapted the screenplay to how the actor wanted to do it. So Timothy Dalton, you just mentioned, he apparently wanted to do it literally by the book. He wanted to be the most true to book portrayal. With Roger Moore, I don't see Roger Moore as particularly very good looking.
No, not by the time he'd done it. He was when he was a younger man, but he was already fairly old when he took on the part.
So for what they did with the screenplays is they just made them much more comical.
So far, he's the bottom of my list, Roger Moore, actually.
I think he's probably bottom of mine as well, if I'm honest. He doesn't really play it like a spy.
I'd like to watch more of them, of his, but from what I've seen, I wasn't keen.
He's the most sort of Mr. Bean of the lot, the one that I consider most to be a bit of a parody, because I don't see him as a spy, and the way he plays it is a bit almost foolish sometimes. I
think, like you say, they changed them a little bit. I think it's more humour. It's a little bit unrealistic.
Yeah.
There's more, it's like you're looking at it going, oh, well, that's not possible.
Yeah.
You know, there's more, and more of the stunts are a bit like that. And
yeah, you can tell he's not really doing it.
Yeah, there's just parts about it where they've done it because they can and it's Bond, but it doesn't fit this gritty realism that I think quite a lot of the other ones have. Yeah. Speaking of stunts and things like that and fights and things, I think you can tell from the first films, you know Bond's going to win.
He's almost superhuman, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's untouchable.
But he doesn't do an awful lot, but you know he's going to win.
Yeah.
Whereas I think over time, they've made it more realistic. It looks hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just watching GoldenEye, the fight at the end with Sean Bean. You know, it's tough, it's gritty, and he's not winning, and it hurts. Yeah. It actually hurts. You know, he's being hurt by that, and that's become even more of a thing with Daniel Craig. You know,
what Daniel Craig's done really well is, I say him because he was sort of a producer on the films as well. The way they've decided to focus not just on the plot of the film, but on the story of the character of James Bond. They've really fleshed him out. They've given him backstory. They've given him feelings and emotions and demons that are present pretty much throughout those 5 films that he did. I think it's the best thing they could have done, really. It was the right direction to take it, make him human.
Yeah.
And more like a drama, I guess. I think it's more relatable now. There's just an extra layer that wasn't there before. I'm conscious we've not mentioned Pierce Brosnan. There's something unusual about Pierce Brosnan, and I think it was a happy accident for him, is that when video games were getting very popular, he was at the time the face that became the video game Bond. You know, he sort of became the quintessential look for a generation of Bond watchers.
I have always said, when I think of James Bond, I think Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
Because he really does have the look. I mean, God, that guy looks good in a suit. And he was absolutely gorgeous. You know, and I think he definitely fits the part really, really well.
Yeah, he kind of, I think, mixed the wit and the charm and the charisma and whatnot of all the other ones beforehand. He amalgamated all of that. I'll tell you what I did watch yesterday. The documentary that Daniel Craig did. I think it was Being James Bond. That's really good. Talking about the struggles that he had initially and then what they've done with it. So good. And Barbara Broccoli ends the documentary by saying something. She says, Daniel has taken the whole thing to a place that is so extraordinary that I cannot imagine Bond after Daniel. And I totally agree with that. And obviously I've seen the last film as well. You've not seen the last film yet?
I haven't.
Just double checking.
Yes, I'm going to. I'm definitely going to, but I haven't seen Spectre.
Ah, okay. That's sensible. It's not too linked, I don't think, this last one, but yeah, it will make more sense if you've seen the full story. So I've put together just a little bit of like a spoiler-free review, I suppose.
Yeah.
There's literally no mention of what happens in any of it. So from a technical perspective, and I don't know whether it's because they had so much time to edit with all the delays, but to be honest, it's pretty much flawless. The director, Cary Fukunaga, has done an amazing job, really. Every shot you could screenshot and use it as publicity, pretty much. It looks incredible. I think the editing's amazing. The action sequences, as you would expect, are sublime. And you know just how good they've been in the last couple of films, that they're not all of a sudden going to be shite. So from that technical perspective, great. I think the performances as well, there's barely a bad word to say, if I'm honest. And there's a lot of characters in this, lots of regulars as well. You've got Daniel Craig and Ralph Fiennes, Ben Whishaw, Naomi Harris, Christoph Waltz, Lea Seydoux, Rory Kinnear, Jeffrey Wright. New characters as well, from Rami Malek and Lashana Lynch, Billy Magnussen, Anna de Armas, who has an amazing role.
Really?
There's an unusual cameo from a British comedian. I'll just say that. There's also a lot of connections to the previous films as well. It's really tying up this sort of Spectre saga.
Yeah.
There are references back to Vesper and Mr. White, Blofeld, Felix Leiter, Madeline Swan. It's a really nice rounding off. And I think more than anything, people have said it's a good send-off for Daniel Craig's
Well, that's
Bond.
what they wanted it, and that's what he wanted, isn't it? He wanted it to close out his Bond.
Yeah, it probably works better as a closure to that run of films and that story. Yeah. Where I think the film struggles is probably the plot, and that's because the send-off part is kind of more prioritised and more interesting, I think. I do think the villain and the motivations of the villain, probably, I just didn't care that much. I was interested, but it didn't really matter.
Buy it, really.
Yeah. It's interesting, the film heavily references another film in the franchise, an earlier film.
Of his or somebody else's? Somebody
else's, a very old one. In the music especially, it's all the way through, it's a massive homage to one of the other films.
Oh, wow.
I'll say no more. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, they had the benefit of knowing that this was going to be Daniel Craig's last outing, whereas with other actors, wasn't really much of an ending for them.
Yeah, it's just the films have ended. I don't think there's ever been something like this in the franchise before, where they said, right, okay, this is this actor's last one. We're really going out on a high. They've never done that before.
I don't want to say they've shot themselves in the foot, but in a way it makes it interesting to know what they're going to do with the 26th film, because they've just had a self-contained running story for Daniel Craig. It's like, well, do they just do another origin and do another run of stories? I don't really know. So that's a bit up in the air. But yeah, my advice is go and see it as soon as you can, because people have been really good with no spoilers. So I don't know how long that will last. I can't say anything to you. I can't.
I don't know what it is about this franchise, because with others, people are, and TV especially, and things, people don't really seem to be bothered about spoiling things. But there's certain things, I don't know whether it's just got a bit of class, James Bond, that the others just don't have, but people are very good about it.
There's a respect for it, I think.
Yeah.
But that's all I can say. That's all I will say.
Well, no spoilers there, so well done.
Did
that
I do
was very
okay?
good. That was very good, yeah. I've got nothing from that whatsoever, except intrigue that I want to see it.
I actually had a power cut in the cinema when I watched it, and it was still good. The last thing on our little list is
you've been looking forward to this for ages.
I was until this morning, and then I realised how hard it was. This is the we've called it theme songs, but it's just any song really that is from a Bond film, and we're going to do our top 5 ranking. Should say though, we're not including just the instrumental ones.
Yeah, just songs that actually artists have sang.
Yeah, so we can pretend that the James Bond theme and the On Her Majesty's Secret Service theme is just already automatically at number 1 because it's music. But this is our top 5 songs as featured in a Bond film. You go first.
Okay.
Sorry, I said that weird.
No, that's absolutely fine. So, my number 5 might be the one that you're most surprised about.
Okay.
For me, it is Nobody Does It Better.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Really? Oh, I thought that would surprise you.
Do.
That is Carly Simon for the film The Spy Who Loved Me, which I didn't like as a film, actually. I really didn't like the film that much at all, but I really like the song. So So my number 4 is Diamonds Are Forever, Shirley Bassey, from the same name as the films of the same name. And I love Shirley Bassey. For me, Shirley Bassey is James Bond.
Yeah. She did 3, didn't she?
When I think about James Bond, I think the James Bond theme, but I also think like her vocals and the whole tone of the songs that she does, they're very similar.
She was like the type of singer they just strived for, I think, that big voice.
Exactly, yeah. And it works so well, I think, hand in hand. My number 3 is Live and Let Die, which is actually, I think, more of an outlier. It's probably the one that doesn't fit with the rest of mine because it's more poppy.
It's the Bohemian Rhapsody of the Bond themes because it just goes through all these different phases, but it is a lot of fun.
Yes, I really like it. In terms of songs that you would just go and listen to, I think that's the one. Yeah,
I'm glad you said that. That is a factor in why I've not included some on the top list. Some of them I just wouldn't choose to go and listen to, but when they're in the Bond film, I love them. So
yeah, I mean, well, I think for most of these, I wouldn't go out of my way to go and listen to Diamonds Are Forever, I don't think.
It's too linked to the film, isn't it?
Yeah, but Live and Let Die, I think you could just listen to that anytime because it's got its own life outside of Bond as well, I think.
Yep.
And my number 2 is Skyfall, which very much goes back to the Shirley Bassey style and really reminded me of those earlier films. Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. I really liked the tone.
With Skyfall, I think at the time it came out and everyone loved it and I loved it, but I think it maybe just got a bit overplayed and it lost a bit of its novelty, I suppose.
It was very overplayed because I think because it was so popular and it was so good.
Yeah.
It's just a really good song. But yeah, it was played all the time.
All the time. But I think listening to it this time, I've kind of gone, oh, it is good. When you're actually listening to it, it's like amazing. But when you think about it and you think, oh, bloody Skyfall. Bloody song.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, right. So my number 5, I really struggled. I'll have to give honorary mention to We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong. I don't know why. Number 5, I put Tomorrow Never Dies, and I think I used to watch this film so much. It was one of the ones that we had on video, I think, or something. I just really like the sort of orchestration of it. I think is good. That I like how each film has this almost like a little musical motif, and some of them are just so great. And I think Sheryl Crow does a great vocal on that. She really tells a story with it, so I really like that. Number 4, I've put Skyfall.
So it was good enough to make your list. Well,
listening to it this morning, I'm like, it is a good song, but it's a well-produced song. It's got all the right nods to being a Bond theme without being just a copy of the Bond theme.
Yeah.
Adele is obviously great. Even though it's not one I would maybe listen to as much as the others, you can't deny that it's
a great song.
That it is good.
Yeah.
Number 3, I've put You Know My Name from Casino Royale.
All right.
And I was listening to it and I was like, is Skyfall better than this? But
yes,
I have too many ties to. I mean, Casino Royale is my favourite Bond film. The feeling of watching Casino Royale, and he just turns and he shoots the screen and it goes, it's just there, and I think it's the most sort of in your face kind of good song, and it sort of defines that era for me. I think it's more nostalgic. I feel like we've swapped. I'm being all subjective today. Yeah. I love all the casino references, I suppose, play on words. I quite like that. Number 2, GoldenEye by Tina Turner.
Really?
Again, boom, 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 boom. Brilliant. How do you write that? It's just, it's so quintessentially secret agent-y.
I am surprised. Very surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great song. I think Tina Turner's great as well.
I mean, I'm by no means saying that Tina Turner is not great.
I don't know. I think lyrically, maybe this is the one I've most chosen for lyrics.
Yeah.
She's talking about smoke and mirrors and reflections and shadows and stuff. And she does paint this. They do it a lot. They kind of personify something in the film that's not a person.
Yeah.
It's like Thunderball, Moonraker, GoldenEye. She paints this image of being stalked and stalking. I just like it. Yeah. Okay.
For me, my number 1 is Goldfinger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is James Bond. It is James Bond. as soon as that first line comes out, I mean, I'm not going to do it because I can't do it any justice whatsoever, but as soon, it's just amazing. I just really love that.
I have to say, I listened to it this morning, and it went from being maybe my number 3 or 4 down to number 15.
Is this the one that dropped significantly?
Dropped, yeah. I would just never choose to put that song on and listen to it. I think it's brilliant in the context of the film, and I love the fact that the music from that song plays throughout the film, and I prefer it in the film. But he's the man. I just can't sing along. I just wouldn't put that on to listen to, and it's a bit full on. And she does hurt my ears at the end. Chills.
I like a big belter. I really do. I think that's why it works for me.
I consider it as great Bond music, but not necessarily the best Bond song. I think that's how I would put it.
Fair enough.
Apart from Skyfall, we've not had any the same. My number 1, License to Kill is my absolute favourite. Again, it's probably in the same way as you think for Goldfinger.
Who's License to Kill? Who sings License to Kill again?
Gladys Knight. It's that Bond sound. So this is like do. It's just there in your face, and it's just fantastic. I can't put it any other way. It's the song that makes me most feel like I'm going to explode.
In a good way, I hope.
Without Shirley being in my ear. I don't know. I can't really. I think it comes down to the production of the song as well. I think it just sounds full, and I don't know. It
just works for
good.
you.
Yeah. It feels like a diva sung song, if that makes sense.
No, I get that.
I'm just going to give up because I can't describe it.
I have to admit, one of the ones that I was thinking about that would maybe have been my number 6 that I really like is Living Daylight.
Yeah.
I thought that's a good song. I would never ever have thought that Aha would be, anyone you would pick to perform a Bond song. But I quite like that one as well.
Yeah. It's another one where, a bit like Skyfall, where I try and imagine it, I try and think about it, and I'm like, it's a bit forgettable. But when it's actually on, hey, drive, where we go. So it's just, all right then. You just go with it.
Yeah.
But that's the most important thing, is that they suit the films. I think they've always suited the films that they're in and the time that they came out. I've
been very underwhelmed by the new ones, apart from Skyfall. I just don't get a vibe for Bond at all. I've just not bothered.
They're much more story-based, and I can speak for No Time to Die on this one, that the placement of the song makes the song make sense. Okay, it might not be a great big belty big band. Having that wouldn't work. It wouldn't fit. Whereas the songs that they've done, even Skyfall, is more of like I don't want to say the word miserable, but it's a little bit like melancholy because he's just fallen into the water.
The tone fits. Yeah. I think it is, again, it's a testament to the franchises. Who they pick to perform the new Bond song is also a huge thing now as well. It's like, who's gonna do the next song? Every part of it now has become this thing, this newsworthy piece of information. It's like, who's doing this? Who's directing it? Who's doing the song? It's everything about it is so well followed. People are so interested.
That's what I meant by it's an institution. It's like you said, it's newsworthy, isn't it?
People want to know. They're interested. They have thoughts. They have a lot of thoughts, depending on what the choices are. Because
in a way, Bond, it's almost like it belongs to all of us. It's like a community thing now. It's like, obviously we don't make the decisions, but it's got to please us.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they very much know that, I think, when they go into these things. But I also think with Bond, sometimes they make choices and thinking, we know best for the audience and they are going to like this. They just don't know it yet. And they're usually right. They are usually right.
Apart from Die Another Day, which is awful.
Can't talk for that one.
Worst film I've seen in a very long time.
Haven't seen it, so
it's appalling. It's a joke.
Speak for that one,
it's literally a joke. In terms of, like, speaking of actor then, I kind of want a complete nobody. Not nobody. I want a complete newcomer to be the next Bond, personally.
Yeah, somebody who's not got baggage. They're not coming with anything else.
Yeah, because all this stuff, Idris Elba, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
it's pointless. I don't think Tom Hardy's going to do it.
For me, I don't want them to go into it saying, right, we need something completely different. I don't want that. I just want them to look at who's going to be good for the part.
Yeah, well, that's all it should.
You know what I mean? I don't want it to be this significant difference, and that's why they've made the choice they've made. So that's the main thing. Also, for me, I like having someone who can perform the role and do a number of films. And let's face it, I mean, the size that the films have got to, it takes 3 years, 4 years to create the film.
Yeah. That's
just one film, you know. So it's been 16 years. And I mean, it's amazing they've made as many as they have, that Daniel Craig's made 5 in that time. But it does take a while to make them, you know. And I think age is a factor. I don't want them picking someone who's 40, in the 40s, and they will be the established people because obviously most of them are a little bit older. I want someone who's a bit younger, not so they can go back and do an origin story, but just so that they've got the time to perform the role for a number of films. We're going to get to see people perform for a few films, and you have to actually get to know them and get to really get into the role. Yeah,
I think they'll go younger. Maybe not young, but I think they will go younger.
I'm hoping that's what they'll do.
If it's not a complete unknown, I think it will be someone a bit like Daniel Craig was. He was just on the fringes of people's knowledge. You know, he was a
Well, they're talking about the guy from Bridgerton, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
They've talked about him a little bit. I know Sam Heughan from Outlander. They've talked. He's been in talks as well. Do you know who I really like? And I'd love to do it. Richard Madden. I'd really like Richard Madden, actually.
Yeah,
he's not, and he does have baggage. He does. He's coming. He's going to be in Eternals this year, and he was in Game of Thrones. He's done a lot. But I'd like to see him. I think he'd bring a little bit of naivety to the role. He's got quite an innocence to him. I think he'd bring a little something and that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Personally, I could see Richard Madden doing it. I would be very okay watching him in a suit doing lots of cool stuff.
The issue, I think, at the moment is that all these names have been floating around for years now.
Yeah.
And I think if they went with any of them, it would just be massively underwhelming now. Just be like, oh, okay, it was one of the 6 names that's been mentioned for the last 2 years. I think that's too easy. Not that they're obviously basing it on rumours and all that stuff, but, I think they're obviously going to audition a lot of people over the next however many years they're going to do.
Yeah, now it'll be interesting, like, do they have any plans for the next one? How far into that process are they? Like, where are they in that line? When do they think they're going to, release the name of someone? Do they have someone already? It's one of those things. It's where are they?
It's going to be a while, I think. I think it's probably going to be at least 5 years, I think. I don't think they're going to do anything straight away.
Do you think so? Really? 5 years? See, I can't see it because I think MGM always need the money of a Bond film.
Because I've seen No Time to Die, I think that there has to sort of be a bit of a pause because you've just having had a nice sort of closure to one story. I think people will need to have space to breathe before they consider something else. I just think it'd be too soon. But like I said, I've seen the film, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm just feeling that way because I've seen it.
We shall see. We'll find out,
I suppose. Ooh, that's Bond.
That's Bond.
Tried our best with that. Just like literally no detail on any of the films.
It's very difficult, I think, with Bond because you could spend probably 3 or 4 podcast episodes on it. It's so big a thing. I think we've given an overview, an outlook, just been very, very brief today. But we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you are going out to see No Time to Die, and that you like it. What have we got next? What are we bringing them next?
We are dipping into horror, as it is sort of Halloween when by the time we do
it. Yes, we're not bringing it out on Halloween. We're bringing it out the week after, but it's horror related.
We're looking at the films of Ari Aster, Robert Eggers and Jordan Peele, because they've all done 2 films each as directors.
They're like the new gods of horror.
Sort of like this new contemporary modern popular horror. So we're looking at Hereditary and Midsommar, The Witch and Lighthouse, which sounds like a Narnia story, and Get Out and Us. So yeah, some crackers in there.
Yeah,
absolutely love them. So most of them produced by A24 as well, one of my favourite companies. So.
Yeah, this will be interesting for me because I haven't seen 3 of the 6.
Oh.
And I also am not sure how I'm going to feel about The Lighthouse at all. Have a feeling I'm going to hate it.
You probably.
I'll take that one. Probably going to hate it.
I'll take that one. Yeah, it's worth seeing anyway. It's, the look of it, the aesthetic of it is good.
I've heard a lot about it when it came out, and I think it's going to be a very exciting episode because this is where they're going with horror.
Yeah,
like you say, it's this contemporary thing. It's
high
new
concept.
horror.
Yeah, the concepts of these are good, and my favourite horror films are the ones that do things different. Definitely in this batch there are a few of those. So.
Jordan Peele just came out of nowhere, and he is just taken over. He's a very exciting one to watch. Mm-hmm. I mean, every time he's involved in anything now, people get excited. And I think Ari Aster as well is another one. He's a great one. He's going to be one to watch for a long time, I think.
Yeah.
And Robert Eggers as well. I think they're producing really interesting things, things that are different and that we've, like you say, not seen before.
Modern classics in the making.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting episode.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
And where can they find us, Matt?
Well, you can find us on our website, cinechat.co.uk/podcast, or you can find us on social media, it's been a while, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. Just search for CineChat Podcast and look for the blue logo thing. And you can email us at
podcast@cinechat.co.uk.
It's just sat there, just nothing's happening. One email. If you're the person to do it, well, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. Maybe. And yeah, that's Bond. Funny old episode, but we've done 50 now, so we don't care. So back to it for episode 52. And yeah, in the meantime, thank you for listening, and it's goodbye from me.
And it's bye for me.